processing. Therapy to Minnesota veterans. Elaine grew up in Alaska and rural Minnesota with a background in psychology and performing arts. Larry is a media literacy education and author, educator and author. They are here today to tell us about the Veteran Resilience Project. So welcome, Larry and Elaine.
Which one would you like, Larry?
Oh, I like them both.
Okay, we'll give you this one here. And this will just click right here onto your spot. Good.
Thank you.
Elaine, we'll get you right here.
Thank you. And when we change, it just back away from the.
Well, you're both on the microphone now onto the iPad, but yes.
Okay.
So, and it is turned on?
It is.
Okay, all right. All right, okay. I told Brian earlier the Happy Money Honey Pot, A.A. Milne, who wrote the Winnie the Pooh stories, few people know this, was a veteran. And I am proud to have been married for going on 41 years now to the founder of Veteran Resilience Project, Elaine Wynne. In 1970, before I knew her, I won the lottery, a trip to be an Army medic, my first trip out of the country. And I came back and I was just, I came back and I just give me a job, which was hard at that time. Because another thing people generally don't know is Eisenhower said it, when we go to war, we drain all the resources out of the regular economy. And I finally got one, but just give me a job, and I'm not angry. When I finally got to the Vietnam Wall in 1996 to find the names of people I knew, I stumbled on the fact that my very common name is 11 times on the Vietnam Wall, only 3 with the same middle initial. But as by that time, I was married to Elaine, and she had taken EMDR training from the founder and from some Vietnam veterans turned EMDR therapist, and she encouraged me to go get some EMDR help. And I can't explain it, but when I did that, I was doing pretty good, and I didn't think anything was but all kinds of things turned around. And for the purposes of today, I started to really pay attention. John Kerry said when he ran for president, still fighting for my country. I started thinking, still being a medic for my country. And I started paying attention to the historic shortchanging of veteran care, which goes back. We always come up with money to send people off to war, but when they come back, there's a problem. And I especially started to pay attention to mental health and exposure to chemical toxins, the 2 things that, most people think they get excellent physical care at the VA, but mental health and chemical toxins have always been a problem, never enough. And Bessel van der Kolk, leading trauma authority, was already saying way back, saying that EMDR was the best for most people with trauma. He's the person that took Vietnam veterans to the federal government and got PTSD listed as something that should be paid attention to, not dismissed as, oh, you're just weak if you've got mental. Um, and I started thinking, I know people also who were veterans who took their own life. And I started to be aware that that's always, if or at least almost always, very related to untreated trauma, the kind of thing that EMDR and Veteran Resilience Project does. So a couple of weeks ago, Philip Brunel sent me an email, something I didn't know about. He said he didn't either. That for 6 years at 3 o'clock on Memorial Day, people all over the country are going somewhere out on the front steps or part of a ceremony and playing taps in honor of veterans. And I signed on, and at 3 o'clock on Memorial Day this year, place to be determined, I am going to play taps for all veterans, including those who sadly and tragically uh, ended their life after they came back and did not get their name on the Vietnam Wall. Or no, I'll play it here as well. About the time all of this was happening, I started to learn that from the time Elaine took EMDR training, she was trying to figure out, she was working with people for some bizarre reason. And that word, in my opinion, is not strong enough. For some bizarre reason, this form of therapy, which was deemed the best and most effective by the trauma authority, who got PTSD designated as a diagnosis to be paid attention to, it was generally not available to veterans. And Elaine was working on that with support from other people. And she managed to get a small grant from the National EMDR Association in about 2013. She did a pilot project, 30 post 911 veterans in Minnesota. And the results were so amazing, not to her or to people that did EMDR. It found its way to the National VA, and the then deputy director, David Shulkin, looked at it and ended up mandating at least one EMDR therapist at all VAs in the country. We have no idea where that's at right now, because he was shortly thereafter, this was 2016, he was fired by the president that we now have again. And we just don't know what, but we know that there's more awareness and there are more therapists out there. Elaine, for the pilot, created a network of highly trained therapists around the state of Minnesota so that anybody who served could call and go see at no cost, confidentially, as if they were going to the VA, a therapist who would see them in his or her private practice. So there's no overhead. They, in many cases, were taking less money from VRP for that than they normally made. And that continues to this day, except we ran it as volunteers for about 5 or 6 years because it was a struggle to get money other than to pay the therapists. And then in 2021, Ryan Winkler navigated a bill through the state legislature that gave us enough money so that we could hire younger veterans to run the program and to have three veterans representing the entire state talking in person to veterans and telling them that they could go take advantage of this service. A lot of good programs out there, but often veterans don't come because they've been uh, messed with, I'll say, so many times they don't trust. But if another veteran talks with them, they are more likely to pay attention. And sadly, I mean, the program is still going, but this last year, 2025, we did not get any money from the state, as did not many other nonprofits. And so we're hoping to find ways. I mean, we're out looking for ways to turn that around again, either through the state next year and or from more private donations, of which they are happening. But now, ladies and gentlemen, here's Elaine.
Hey, thank you, Larry. That was a wonderful, wonderful start. I I was raised in northern Minnesota, between Bemidji and Red Lake. That's quite a ways. And then I was also raised part of my life in Canada, or in Alaska. My dad had worked in Canada at the uh, road, the big Alcan Highway. If you haven't been there, it's a place. It's an amazing trip. Well, I think I made it 5 times in my childhood, coming back and forth to the farm, and that those were really powerful change times for me. My parents both worked at uh, Ladd Air Force Base, and so I was 3 blocks from there when I got out of school. And I'd go and stand at the corner at the grocery store, and when it was cold, and sometimes it got cold in Alaska, uh, I would, they'd let us sit down and wait, while we were waiting for our parents, and they'd take us home. Well, and then my father was quite a person to make things. And when we had gotten to Fairbanks, we got a place to stay in what was called a trailer court, but it really was lots of small houses and some trailers. So I was home. I was a latchkey kid then. My mother worked, and we I got to know all those people so well, and introduced him to my parents, and we that was a great thing. And when my dad had some illness, he would take me out to all the places where they have a kind of swirling place to catch uh, uh, fish out of it, and bring those home for dinner. And I learned how to cook it that way. He would say, no, just do this and do this, and don't let your brothers say a word when they come home, because they're not going to get any of that food if they keep doing that. So that was enough to keep it going. I so I met people who were veterans, and dad and mother were very welcoming in our home. And sometimes we'd have somebody who served what they called out in the bush, and we would, and sometimes they were pretty difficult times for that person. And they were, one time I remember they bought a ticket from Fairbanks to New York City because their man that they knew just had to get back. He had to get home. And they said, that's okay. You just stay with us until that you can get the next flight. You don't, it's not like it is now with all of these flights waiting for you. And that was, again, another thing where my parents just, if they were gone, if they were going to be gone, there were other mamas in the area that were, I always say that my mother's trap line of mamas. And then we were also friends when other times. So when it came that the Vietnam War was rolling back, well, actually before that, I belonged to the Minnesota Hypnosis Foundation, and that's a wonderful organization here in this area and most of the places they have, and they are what's happened when you start is you really learn how to do calming for yourself, and you use it, your face, a lot of that now, but there wasn't when I started. And that was one of the first things that EMDR, when it came around, that was the first part of it. And you had to be, as a teacher, you had to be really good at teaching those things, because the people needed a very good grounding before they started the EMDR. I, I I would suggest that if you're interested in it, the EMDR, that there's a lot of things on the internet which demonstrate it and show people joking around and not, finding other ways to encourage you to try it out, and not without a therapist, but in that you could do that and learn how it feels. And now you go to those meetings, and there are thousands and thousands of people from all parts of the world. And when I first started, and I was kind of running the area here on EMDR, so, sometimes there'd be an article in the paper, and when something's just starting and they make little mistakes, and the people um, from the oh I'm thinking, the place where uh, uh, where I can't think.
You're talking about the strip?
No, I'm talking about the country that is by right now. Had started
Israel.
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 Israel was my best friend, and they would say, we read this article, and they'd quote where it was, and it was always around the United States, and they'd say, they made a mistake, but that's all right. You can correct it next time. But boy, if we get an article written in between, we'll do it. Yeah, the
Oh,
close. Yeah. Okay, so you're gonna.
no, just finish up.
Okay, yeah. So that was how I started, and I began to look around, and Shep was really one of the first people in this area that pulled it together, helped me pull it together, and then he gathered other people and encouraged them to come and encouraged them to look for therapists that could do the work, or look for people who would be able to use it. And that was also a big thing. A number of Golden Valley people came in, helped out on the beginning days, and so as I said, it's all over the United States, it's all over the world, and it's growing all the time. There's a very wonderful monument built in California for the founder. She died several years ago, but everyone still remembers a great contribution to psychotherapy. So I think I wanted to do just one. Can I do just
Yeah.
one? Yeah.
I'm just, they said
Yeah.
leave time for
Okay.
questions.
Okay. Will do. Yeah. Well, one of the things that as we were sitting and talking about it, and Larry said, you just when you do this and you're just ordinarily sitting around, that's the best way to listen to it. So that's what I would do, and I decided to do that. I will take you one kind of person, and you won't recognize it because they're either from another part of the country or um, she found when she got out of the service that what came up for her a lot in her life was that she had very negative attitudes about herself, and she would really say, "I got to change this. I got to change this," but it just couldn't get changed. And I saw her as a client, and um, it was the process of setting up the EMDR so that you could think positively, or that you could think less negatively about yourself in different situations. Now that's kind of real everyday EMDR. I mean, people and other kinds of therapy now, but at that time it wasn't quite like that. And she was so just insistent that she would do this. This had to change. Her life was really bothered by it. And she realized that it had actually come from her family, the way they parented her. And it's hard to be a parent, and most everyone makes some kind of mistakes or other, or things that don't work so well. Um, but it can shift, and this is what she and I worked together with. And she was able to. She had a very bad coworker who involved her in sexual trauma, which is a growing kind of therapy in right now in the country. And it's growing again. And so there's going to need to be more of that. I personally retired last month, and people say, "Oh, that's too bad," and I say, "Well, I don't know. I think it was time for other people to pick that up, and there are a lot of people here." And Veteran Resilience Project, our director, maybe someday you'll get a chance to meet her. She is, I think,
She's a major.
major in the um, oh,
National Guard.
okay, you got it. National Guard. I really should have
We are both
specified our notes.
80 or more, and I couldn't remember the author of Winnie the Pooh, though I know.
No,
So
like the
we
back of
we
your
lose
hand.
things.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's been a great experience growing and watching and getting to the point where there's all these therapists all around Minnesota. I think it's almost 60 now that we have trained, and have a person who lives west of the Twin Cities, uh, probably about 60, 70 miles. And she does all of the placement and all of the pre-testing with people, and takes all their questions when they're moving along. It's like one of the most miraculous things I've ever seen, is how she's put that together. And that's how everybody did it. And we learned things from others, but still being able to do that. And we had 3 people who were worked all around the state, and they talked to people and just got chance to do learn more about what was needed and what could help certain people. So the hardest part for that person was just to learn that there are different ways of child rearing. And her sisters helped her, and it was because they realized themselves what it had been like, but she'd been away at service, and they hadn't kind of gotten together with her in those little times of collaborating. And but then they were able to do more of that after she was out of the service, and that was uh, a major part of the work I did was that. But some are harder, but that was a good one too.
Well, thank
Okay.
you so much.
Can we do questions?
Why don't, can you stay for a little while so that people who are currently gainfully employed can know you?
Oh,
But the rest, but
okay.
they can ask you
Well,
questions.
then let me, yes, we
Okay.
can, but yeah, before anybody leaves, you know, if you know
Thank you.
anybody, well, if you know anybody who has served in the military in Minnesota or is, or now their spouse, they can go to the website, which, well, I'm going to give you a little flyer if you want it. They can go to the website and consider the possibility of having this happen for them. And of course, if you know anybody that wants to write a check for $400,000 to replace the state money, we're open to that too.
You might
And
have a couple.
if you're a golfer, and I copied some of these, it's on the website, but there's a golf tournament. One of the therapists on Elaine's list is a retired veteran, I think Navy, and he has put together, now he's an EMDR therapist, and he's put together this golf tournament or not tournament, event on May 3rd, which is a fundraiser for VRP. So, you know, take one, come yourself or give it to a golfer friend. And I'll just walk around
He's
and
he's also
Wait a minute.
one of the people who trains other therapists now. I don't do all of that anymore. I do just small parts of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much and for all that you've done. It's just amazing. And we all hope you mentioned your age that I get there and look as good as you do. But we have a gift for you. Um, Golden Valley had a contest for pictures of
Yeah.
Golden Valley and since you live here. And we made up note cards. And so
Oh.
we have a set of note cards for each of you for coming and
Beautiful.
participating, that you can think of us when you're
Mm.
writing notes to your friends and showing them a little more of Golden Valley.
thank
Thank
you.
Thank you very
Right.
much.
Yeah, I'm gonna grab you.